Hey. Welcome to 200. No, hey. Welcome to episode 267. Yeah, I got it that time. Of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. This episode is called Culture Pop. And last night, actually, I went with a friend. We were celebrating his birthday, and we went to a great movie called Mercy. I just loved it, and it'll be in my memory for a long time. But I often don't think of movies and books and things like that as in a broader context. But my guest today does, and I'm excited to talk with him about such things. He has such great reflections on how pop culture has been a huge an instrumental part of his life and his moving forward as a kid and where he is now as an adult. So I'm excited to bring him on, but first this. Today's guest, Chris Taylor. Please welcome to the Awkwardly Awesome Studios and stage. It's not really a stage, it's more studio. It's more virtual studio. Anyway, please welcome Chris Taylor.
Hey.
Hey,
you.
Chris.
Thank you for the introduction there. That was awesome.
Thanks for being on Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Hey, man. It's my pleasure. It's been a few times now. I love it that each time we talk about something a little different. So this is a topic that hits pretty close to home. So I'm going to have fun with it.
Sweet. I'm excited to learn more about you and this topic too. So when you were a kid, your family ended up moving quite a few times. What was the reason for all these moves?
Well, a lot of people assume that I'm a military brat or something, but that was never the case. My dad worked in the automotive industry, and as it turns out, you get moved around just about as much in that field. So when I was born in Kansas. We lived in Olathe, Kansas, and my dad worked for General Motors, or rather American Motors. And then when I was about 5, we went to Michigan, and I was in Michigan from 5 to 7. And I remember going down to Detroit when it was still, Motor City, and seeing the cars being built on the assembly line and everything. And that was so cool.
Well, I've always wanted to see that happen. I've seen videos of cars being built, but I've never been in a plant. What is that like?
I mean, it was. I just remember there was a ton of sparks. There were so many people. It was kind of, especially as a young kid. I mean, I was probably 6, 7. Oh, the young kids will enjoy that one. 6 or 7.
Speaking of culture.
Yeah, speaking of culture, there you go. But no, it's probably 6 or 7. I just remember everything was larger than life. You had the assembly line, you had stuff flying in overhead. What I remember more than anything were all the people, right? All the guys. They wanted you to come right up, and they wanted to show you what they were doing. They're like, "Oh, you want to push this button? You want to do this?" And so, as a kid, it was just cool being part of that. Being included in a small part of that process. And
So you actually didn't only see it, you got to push some buttons?
Yeah, yeah. Some of the guys would let me push buttons and things when I visited, but everybody wanted me to come closer, and they showed me like, oh, this is what I'm doing here, and this is what this does, and this is what this machine does, and then yeah, you stand back and just see the larger scale thing, and I do remember a lot of sparks. That was cool.
Wow. So that was Michigan.
Hmm.
Where did you move after your 6, 7 years?
After my 6, 7 years, so then we moved to Virginia, and my dad I I think my dad was still, I don't remember where, somewhere in there, Chrysler bought out American Motors. And at some point in Virginia, he wasn't super happy with the management at Chrysler. And he ended up taking a job in New York with Suzuki at the time. But there was no way he wanted to uproot our family and move us again, having just had to move twice for his job. So, um, and we were in Virginia for a while before this happened, but probably the last year that we were in Virginia, he had an apartment in New York. And so he'd fly out to us on Friday night, after a long day of work, so he could be with us for Saturday and Sunday. And then he'd fly back Sunday night, and he'd be gone during the week. And as kids, I don't think we really took into consideration how much, there's no way we could have known how much stress and strain that was on him. But looking back on it, just so appreciative that he didn't he didn't uproot us at that time, because it was just so important. He knew we had great friends, and we were doing well, but also that he sacrificed so much, you know to be able to do that, you know not to mention just the financial cost of having to have an apartment on top of a home.
And having to fly.
Yeah, and having to fly that often, but to fly back, because I just think it showed the degree of the man that my dad is, and how much he loved his family, and he wanted to be there on Saturdays for us for the baseball games, and you know to do the family activities and stuff. So
Well, that's quite it takes a lot on his part. And how about your mom? She
well,
had to raise you too during the week by herself, basically.
yeah, for that span. But I mean, my mom's always been just a huge um, caregiver and everything. She was always the one running Jason and I around, and Jason's my brother, if I haven't mentioned that. um, Running us around to activities, and coming up with stuff for us to do, keeping us busy, getting us. My mom put me in art classes and things, and it was very instrumental in giving me a lot of the support that would form the foundation of a lot of the things I'm into. Uh,
Wow.
but yeah, I got very lucky. I know a lot of my friends growing up always were like, "Oh wow, you really had like the Leave It to Beaver upbringing, like the kind of that perfect picturesque stuff." And I really do have to give a lot of credit where credit's due. And my
Mm,
parents, my parents were amazing,
mm,
and they still
mm,
are. They still are
mm,
amazing.
mm. So after Virginia, did you move to a nearby state like Pennsylvania?
Oh yeah, the next one was a real easy move. It was um my dad could only keep up with Suzuki for so long, and then he took a job with this fledgling little startup company you might have heard of, called Lexus, um, but it was all the way in California. And Lexus, of course, being the luxury line of Toyota, the kind of offshoot of that. So he took the job here again. What I think, wanted to make sure the job was official, so I was still doing kind of the flying and whatnot. But that one is not as easy to go from the East Coast to the West Coast and every weekend. So he knew we'd have to move, and for that move, I really appreciated it because it was a devastating move. I had so many of my best
Mm,
friends, and I mean, Virginia was such a solid place for us.
mm,
And that was tough leaving everybody when I was 10 years old. But my mom and dad were great in that they wanted to include me in the process. They wanted to kind of get me excited about it. So they flew me out with them and included me in the home um, finding process. I was going to say buying, but obviously I had no stake in that. But the home finding process. So
You were earning a lot of money in grade school.
yeah, I was just raking it in, man. So yeah, so that was cool. We went out and I got to experience California, a bit. We looked everywhere from Huntington Beach on down through um, Irvine. Really, we looked everywhere um, with our realtor, and that was cool. It was cool to be included in that process. But ultimately, we wound up finding a home we loved in Anaheim Hills, and that's where we purchased and set up shop. And my mom had one requirement, and that was that she didn't want, even though it was, again, one of these things in hindsight you realize a lot more. She knew how important my 10th birthday party was going to be, and wanted me to
Mm,
be with my friends and all that stuff through
mm,
that. So even though my birthday is August 19th, it doesn't leave a whole lot of time before school starts. That was one requirement, is that we stay in Virginia long enough to have my 10th birthday party, so I can kind of say bye to all my friends and
mm,
have everyone there. And that was, she really went all out. That was a spectacular party,
mm.
sleepover, shebang, all that stuff. And then we moved, and back in those days, school used to start the day after Labor Day. So we had like a week or two tops before school started, uh, for the moving van to get there and all that stuff. And um, I remember it being a somewhat smooth process, but I'm sure it was much more hectic behind the scenes. So
So had you been to California before you went on that trip to house hunt with your parents?
no, no, that was my very first time there, and you want to talk about a culture shock. It's just, it is polar opposite of everything that I had known living in, essentially the Midwest, to the East Coast slash South, whatever you want to call it. I never realized Virginia was the South while I was living there. It's, um, but anyways, yeah, to go from that to California, and I do remember the just sunshine all the time. I remember being out and about in the wintertime and seeing all these Californians bundled up and like wearing jeans and heavy flannels, or flannels weren't the thing then, but jackets, something. They're just all bundled up like it was winter. And I looked at my mom. I was like, what the heck is wrong with these people? This weather is perfect. I'm sitting here in like my shorts and a t-shirt, and I think the weather was only in like the 60s or something. But everyone else out there is just, they don't have the blood for it, I guess.
I mean, this is so funny because right now you're sitting in your house in California and you're wearing a flannel.
Yeah, well, let's see. That's 30, 36, I think. 36 some odd years in California will do that to you. Your blood loses some of it. Although I will say this, I went to New York a number of years ago. I think it was like 2016 or 17, somewhere around there.
Mm.
And um, we went during a deep freeze, right? And I was wearing a Dickies jacket with a broken zipper that didn't zip up, a t-shirt,
Oh.
a pair of jeans. Sorry, I don't know where that's coming from. There it is. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I'm wearing a Dickies jacket with a broken zipper, a t-shirt, pair of jeans, that's it, you know. And we're
Wow.
out there in the deep freeze, and man, it didn't even affect me. I think I was so excited just to finally be in New York. We went to
Mm.
Times Square in the middle of the night and nobody was there. And almost that whole we were there for like 10 days or maybe 2 weeks, somewhere in
Mm.
that vicinity. But during that entire like first week, I hardly saw anybody on the streets of New York because the New Yorkers were too freaking cold to come outside. They were staying inside. Here I'm walking around everywhere. I've got just snow. It snowed one of the days. I've got snow stuck in my beard and my hair, and I'm just having the time of my life. So I guess while yes, I got a little California, what do you call it, thin blooded, it can still take effect when I go other places, I guess.
You remember your Midwestern East Coast blood when you travel there, huh?
Yeah, it comes right back, I guess. More so than some of the New Yorkers, as it turns out.
Since we're talking about pop culture, were there movies or TV shows that prepared you a little bit for your night and day move from Virginia to California?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of them, and here's one. Ready? I just took a sip of coffee, but
Leia.
that's Princess Leia with the buns has two different handles there on my coffee mug. Yeah, I mean there was a lot.
Everyone, Chris Taylor doesn't only talk about pop culture; he walks his pop culture talk. I just want you to know.
um, yeah, man. I mean, there so much. So this is what's interesting. The move to California was much more jarring, right? Um, it was. I didn't make those connections like I did or as immediately. Like I had friends. I became friends with everyone on my street that was my age, which tends to happen. But my next door neighbor, at least, was kind of that was the first time I'd ever really had a friend that was like he was a friend as long as it was convenient for him. But the second someone else came around, then he'd kind of flip into the bully, and I'd be the guy he picked on because
Mm,
I was different and stuff.
mm,
But all the moves I had had previously, I think you want to talk about bonding, pop culture as a bonding thing. I always kind of had that, and I still had that with this move to Virginia and in my isolation and whatnot. But if anything, I kind of leaned in more to the movies I loved, the bonds I had, and it made the bond with my brother deeper. And my brother and I share a lot of the same interest, and really, it's because I think I forced a lot of those interests onto him, like with Star Wars and things like that. So. Um, Yeah, I'm probably getting way off topic with that, but we always had those things. So those moves were there in pulp culture and movies and music and all that stuff. They were familiar friends, and they helped in the process of making friends, but they also helped in the process when friends weren't there. You know,
mm,
friends weren't immediately there, and it was a huge, like I said, bonding tool with my brother. And my brother being 3.5 years younger than me, I do remember in Anaheim Hills during that stay. I probably played with toys a little later than most kids my age would have at 10 years old. I think most kids give them up somewhere around there, and I was still playing with my brother at probably 11, 12, somewhere around there before. So I remember having a friend over to the house who said, "I think it's weird that you still play with toys, dude." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. Some of that too was my parents were kind of slow getting us into the things that, well, not getting us into, but having it in the house. Like the whole world had Nintendo, and we finally were able to get an Atari sort of situation. Um, and that was really what kids were using in those days to bond. And we used to chase them around in Virginia. My friends and I, we'd all find out who had the Nintendo system, whose parents were cool letting kids in the house during the day, because that used to be the thing. Your parents wanted you out of the house, playing, going outside. we, we'd have a whole like mental map of the neighborhood. Oh, this kid. Oh, Matt's got this game. Matt's got Castlevania. Man, we got to go over there and play that today. And oh, this he's got Friday the 13th over there. So you knew the different friends, different games, and we'd just round up a group of friends. It'd be like eight, probably six to 10 of us just showing up at random doorsteps. Hey, can Matt come out and play? And he's like, oh no, you guys want to come in and play Nintendo?
um, what a gift in retrospect that you got those extra years of playing with toys.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you want to talk about, yeah, it might have been a little old for me, but it was right in the right range for my brother, and a lot of that was bonding time with my brother and things like that helped. So
So let's talk about, let's get started with the pop culture. So how did Star Wars come into your life?
So this is weird. People talk about their core memories. That's become popular talk in recent years. Well, one core memory I definitely have is the first time I saw Star Wars, and I remember, and this would have been in Michigan. I think it was in Michigan. It could have even been. It could have been as early as Kansas. And the only confusion I'm getting is that both houses in Kansas and in Michigan had like this wall, this faux wood wall kind of backdrop that was popular at the time.
Oh yeah,
Those-
yeah, it was great.
but I remember being there with my mom and my dad. My brother wasn't there, so either he hadn't been born yet, or he was a baby and was up sleeping. So not doesn't matter what I do remember. Actually, no, this was before my brother because I would have been. I want to say I was between 3 and 4. We were sitting on the couch, and my mom and dad were both there, and we're trying to figure out something to watch. And my dad says, "Oh, oh, Star Wars. I heard this is pretty good. Let's try this. Maybe Chris will like this." And he turns it on, and I think it was on HBO. So it was one of those things that you had to wait for when it popped up. And the second that scroll hit the screen, it was just, I was mesmerized. And I just remember at that young age just having my mind blown that, holy crap, like real movies like this exist. I'd probably been largely into cartoons before that because as a kid, live action, movies with people are just not as entertaining. But this thing just captured my attention, and I was hooked. I was hooked to such an extent that I became kind of a nuisance, right? Because you couldn't, because like the market for owning VHS tapes back then was non-existent, right? You were lucky enough to have a VCR. Most VCRs didn't even record anything. So I see Star Wars, and it's like, as a kid, I want more of it. It's like, I want to see more. I want to see more. I want to see it again. And so my mom found out that one of their friends in the neighborhood had a VCR that recorded it, and they managed to record when they showed it
Oh
in the broadcast
wow.
on HBO. So he would let me borrow his tape. And he let me borrow it so much that he's like, "Oh God," he's like, I'm just gonna make my own copy for him. So somehow he did it. And I think back in those days, you had to put two VCRs together to make copies. So he made a copy of his copy of Star Wars. And man, I just watched that thing like every day. Um, to the point like my copy had a. Do you remember when you used to get like static that went across the screen sometimes on a VCR and you had to adjust it? I don't know if
Yeah.
this was part of the recording process or what, but there was a part in the movie, and it's like the most important part where Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi are having their lightsaber fight, and the static just came in. It's like you couldn't even see it, and then finally it fixed and adjusted like right at the perfect time. Um, but that is so etched in my brain, as part of that. Like, if I could see that old VHS again, that static would probably hold so many, fun little memories and, associations with that time, that to this day, when I watch the movie, I still remember that static coming in at that part.
Wow. Wow. You telling that story in such vivid detail. It's a great story. I had never heard it before. You telling it in such vivid detail makes me wonder. For me, I may have enjoyed things as a kid, but often I just kind of move on in my mind and don't think about these formative core memories.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's one thing I've been fortunate with is I have a lot of really vivid memories, especially from childhood. And I know that talking to other people, a lot of people have rough childhoods and they've got stuff they've tried to kind of block out and things. Um, and I can see where like some of my moves, some of those difficult moves could have created a situation like that where I would have wanted to block them out. But I think because I had learned that each move was an opportunity to kind of recreate yourself, I didn't ever get to that point where I just totally shut down or blocked anything out. So I was able to kind of retain so much. But I also might be something freaky with me because I forget stuff all the time now. But I can still remember like when I was in a freaking baby and me swimming class with my mom being held underwater. The first time I told my mom that one time and she freaked out and she was like, "There's no way that you would have known that." I was like, "Yeah, I remember I was looking at you and then you held me underwater and I saw like the water and whatnot. And I came up and there was this big light hanging on, that I just saw this light and
Oh,
it was like in a cage. And she's like, "Oh, that gave me chills." She's like, "You were a freaking baby." That was a mommy and me swimming class. And I didn't want to put you underwater, but the instructor is like, "Oh, babies know how to hold their breath." And it's like I remember that. I
wow,
remember crawling like so before I was walking, crawling, and picking up a daddy long leg off of the sidewalk and eating it. And I can still tell you the sensation of what it felt like in my mouth. I mean, I was a
wow,
baby. I, you know, but
wow.
that's where those memories stop. It's like I just have some random core memories that are just very much there, and you know.
So at age 10, you had made this monumental move from Virginia to California. What other movies, TV shows were inspiring you during that time?
Well, if I think of Anaheim Hills, the big one that comes to mind. And this is the era. Remember, this is the era of MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, everything else, and it was also very much the era of The Simpsons. And again, I remember earlier in the day being at the mall with my parents, and there was a big sign, a big poster for Simpsons premiering on Fox or whatever, and my dad's like, "Oh yeah, he's all that the Simpsons premieres tonight." And I don't even know if I was paying that much attention to it before he said that. And then I remember looking at the poster like, "Oh, that's cool. We should watch it." And then so that night, me and my brother and my mom and dad, and for some reason, because we had a family room, that where we normally gathered to watch um, stuff. I don't know if it was on maybe later, but we all went and sat on their bed and watched the premiere episode of The Simpsons. Um, and so my brother and I were both like, "Holy crap, this is the greatest thing ever!" Again, nighttime shows were normally kind of boring. They were kind of funny, but we had other interest going on. But to now have this cartoon and have this kind of crazy character Bart, that was going to elementary school just like we were, it just gave us something to kind of instantly bond over. So we watched that first episode. The next week when it came on, we watched that one. Now, keep in mind, early Simpsons episodes were Bart was the main character, right? So I think the second episode had a storyline that involved Bart spray painting on the side of a building or school or something like that. And this is when the culture at large went crazy. Like the Simpsons craze hit right away. And then the news is talking about, oh, is this good for kids to be watching? Is this teaching kids bad behaviors and stuff? And my parents decided that the news was probably right. And this was not something that was really appropriate for my brother and I to be watching. So all of a sudden we went from The Simpsons is the coolest show ever to The Simpsons is banned in the house. Like you're not allowed to watch The Simpsons. Well,
so were you and your brother just like, oh, that's the way it is?
yeah, I mean it sucked and we were bummed, but we were also kids. So we are like, okay, how can we watch The Simpsons? And we had a crappy TV in our room that we played our Nintendo on, but it had a set of antennas on it, so you could still get some of those basic,
bunny ears on it.
yeah, like the bunny ears, right? You could still get some of those basic channels in, if you could figure out which direction and spread. So Jason and I would be on there constantly trying to figure out how we could get the reception, and sure enough, we did. We managed to get The Simpsons in it. It wasn't perfect. It was kind of snowy, but we got it. We could hear it, and we turned that volume down to like, if there was something below 1, that was probably where it sat, and we would just lean in, watch the screen, and listen to it, and bust up. My parents thought we were in the room, playing Nintendo or something else, and here we are watching The Simpsons. And then if we started to hear movement downstairs, one of us would go to the door and be the lookout. And if they started coming, we'd switch the channel real quick because we kept the Nintendo on in the background, and we could just switch back to channel 3 and the Nintendo would be up on the screen.
It's a really fun story.
So, and yeah, so to this day, The Simpsons is still very, very big for me and my brother.
Chris, what gave us the idea for this conversation? I think is for some reason we began talking about Pee Wee Herman. Oh, you sent me a meme of Pee Wee Herman from Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. So anyway, what did Pee Wee Herman and the movie and the Playhouse mean to you as a kid?
So that one came around when I was in Virginia. That's when That's when I remember that really taking hold. And me and my friend Tony, my next door neighbor and best friend, Tony, we were freaking obsessed with it. So you had the movie that came out that we didn't know at the time, but now it's very well known that it was Tim Burton's first movie. If you've seen a Tim Burton movie, you know some of the kind of crazy stylings and whatnot he brings to it. And so when Pee-wee's Big Adventure came out, we saw that and we were hooked. It was just larger than life, the visuals, just what was going on. We liked Pee-wee as the character. There was the tequila dance, and I remember my friend Tony would always do that tequila dance where, he got up and does a little shuffle. And then also I don't know. I don't remember if I think it came out after the movie where Pee Wee's Playhouse then came on TV. And I was very familiar with that kind of children's variety show thing because I used to watch like Mr. Rogers and whatnot. And I know Paul Rubens was like a huge Captain Kangaroo fan, right? So it seemed like a natural progression in a very 80s centric way, um, for that. And it was very over the top. The set pieces, the characters, the artwork, the puppets, everything on display were just like nothing I'd ever seen before, and we just loved everything about that show. But I know what was interesting is in our text together, you're a few years older than me, and this talks about like an important shift that happens in culture too. And you told me what?
Oh, I said something like, to me, Pee Wee Herman was just a really annoying character. I saw the movie and enjoyed a few scenes in the movie, but Pee Wee's Playhouse, no, thank you.
Yeah. So and that was probably the proper reaction at the age you were. I was right at the right age where it hit, and I got into it, got hooked on it, and it definitely helped feed my creativity. And another thing that show did, interestingly enough, looking back, was that it had a ton of inclusion, right? Um, it was all about kindness, and you had a character who was, you had a character who was African American. You had a character. I mean, Pee Wee himself was gay. We didn't know that at the time, but very kind of flamboyant, over the top. You had um, a older female character. You had so many different characters coming in, and everybody was always included. There was always kindness, and it was all about creativity and just thinking about that. So there was never any meanness, if you will, in that show. But again, like I remember when Barney came out, I hated Barney with a passion because I was too old for that. That's probably where Pee Wee sat with you at that time.
Mhm.
But also, I think Barney and Teletubbies and what,
Oh
what
my god.
whatever else has come out, I think those are all really kind of dumbed down versions of. I think they lost some of that magic that Pee Wee had, or that Mister Rogers had, or
Speaking of inclusion, and I hadn't thought of going here right now, but it seems like the perfect time. Please. So you're an artist. One of the many things you do is you're an artist. Please tell me about this image.
yeah. So my love of culture, or pop culture, made it into it. It's always been there, and I became basically an artist, a graphic artist, after growing up looking at cereal boxes and records and album covers and all that sort of stuff, and movie posters. Everything kind of informed what I do. And somewhere along the line, I started thinking it was kind of a very punk rock idea, but you start to question, okay, so I have all these memories that are so saturated, so based in pop culture. Um, so, like, where does ownership of that pop culture begin, and where does it end? Like, I see the world through this stuff, I have memories through this stuff, but clearly this is much bigger than the creator intended, right? And so I started to come up with this idea for culture pop, literally just turning pop culture on its head. And it was just a way to kind of look at the world and re-examine the world through that. So this image here, if you want to bring the wrap back up, this one was probably to date one of my most famous pieces. It's won a ton of awards. It's been published so many places. But the idea behind it was just it's a one party system, right? So you've got we all know that we have a two-party system, but the idea here is that we, at the end of the day, we the people need to remember that we're the people, and everybody in power, no matter what side you're on, has ulterior motives. And the rat has a lot of symbolism and everything else there. I have always viewed this as a very bipartisan logo. I was actually approached by someone running third party who asked me if they could use this in their, campaign. I didn't want it to be associated though with any one thing, so I said no. I wanted to keep this very much however you want. I've had Republicans come up to me and tell me, "Oh, it's the Demorat," and I've had the other line say like, "Oh, this." So to me, this piece of art is called the name of this logo is called Truth, and the longer version was Truth in Advertising. So read into it what you may, but anytime that you're not happy with, um, the powers that be, this is where we all remember that we're united. I feel like, try not to go too much.
What?
I trying not to take it in too much of a political zone, even though some of my stuff is a little political, but this one is very much intended for the people by the people, and anybody can fly it as it applies to them.
It's brilliant that the stars are made out of the background.
That the stars?
Yeah, the stars are the same color as the background.
Yeah. So you got that kind of punch through. I mean, of course, that is based on the old. You remember the elephant and the donkey. I don't know. I think they still use those symbols for Democrat and Republicans, but it was kind of like the third party, the one uniting party. But
how about before we go forward, what's this photo about? Oh,
yeah, that's a little Chris. So based on what I'm holding there, that's the Rancor monster from Return of the Jedi. And it looks to be Christmas because that's a Christmas tree behind me. And the background there, you can see my Fisher Price record player. So I must have been having to play something. I would play that every night, listen to, little, because it wouldn't play. I don't think it played full size, but it played the little ones, the 7 inches or whatever. I'd fall asleep listening to that stuff. So it was cool seeing that there. And then this guy over here, remember punching bags for some reason were really big in the 80s. And there's my punching bag. But here's what's funny. So I had this picture along with this exact toy on the shelf in my room. So there you go. I still got it. Quite the collector.
hold up that toy one more time, please. Is that the same toy you had back then?
That's the exact same one that I'm holding in that picture.
Wow.
I mean, he doesn't stand great. He's kind of got to be propped up. He's got this lazy leg, but I still have a lot of my Star Wars figures from back then, and it was cool too being able to kind of hand that down to my kids when my kids got into it, especially my son, especially Lyric. He really loved it and played with all the toys, and I could have been a stickler and be like, oh, those are worth a lot of money, you can't touch them, but I was like, no, this is an opportunity to share that enjoyment. with them. And so I let him play with all the action figures. I had a bunch of them that were still in their cardboard, not the originals. Those I would have kept, but when they re-released them, I had a ton of them that were still in the cardboard. And Lyric enjoyed them so much that I kind of did what my mom used to do. And if he had a great week at school, I'd give him an unopened one that he could open and play with and all that stuff. So I seem to have a helicopter landing on my head right now. So
No big deal. So this brings up the question: do we save toys, or do we give them to Goodwill, sell them at women's sales, pass them on? What are your thoughts on that question?
well, if it were up to me, I would have kept everything. Like we had in Virginia, we had a basement and we had just an entire like shelving system that was just full of toys. Like my brother and I had practically every Masters of the Universe figure. We had GI Joe. We had Star Wars. We had all that sort of stuff, and we'd go down there, and that's where we'd play. And had a couch down there, a rug. And it wasn't a finished basement, but that was our hang place. That was our hangout. But and we had a lot of like the big vehicles, right? I had like the Millennium Falcon and stuff like that. However, whenever it came time to move, we noticed that there was always a big downsizing of the toys, you know.
Hmm.
And so that's what my mom used to say is, well, I couldn't keep everything when we moved, so you know, she would hold on to like kind of the action figures or some of the smaller stuff, but all of a sudden those big vehicles, those big things would be gone. In fact, this is funny. So there was, and again, this stuff only becomes valuable because nobody realizes this at the time, right? But there was this crazy mall campaign where they had made these speeder bikes from Return of the Jedi that you could actually like sit on and ride. And there were only so many of them made, and it was something that you had to win. Like you couldn't buy it, you couldn't purchase it in the
Hmm.
store. It was never available. And
Hmm.
I remember when we were kids, always kind of doing these things where we signed up for and put the raffle ticket in and hope to get it. Well, I won this thing. And so
Wow.
this thing used to be in our basement, and it was like, as a kid, I remember it being huge. It's probably not as huge, but it was like a little bike that was a speeder bike, and I'd ride it around the basement all the time and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, when we had to move to California, I came home one day and the bike was gone. My mom had
Oh.
donated it somewhere. If
Oh.
I still had that thing today,
Oh.
I could probably send a kid through college. Like that's
Oh.
how rare it was. But
Wow.
again, it becomes rare because people don't know, you know, at the time. So I don't know where it wound up, but whoever has it,
Is
if
a
it's not,
lucky person.
yeah, if it's not in the dump somewhere, it's whoever's got it's a lucky person.
S- Um.
So
s-
as far as you had asked me, so as far as my thought on that, yeah, I understand you can't keep everything. I had to go through that with my own kids, and again, it was during a move. It was moving from Lake Forest out to where I am now in Temescal Valley. And I had just an attic full of stuff that kind of just accumulates. And you're like, okay, well, the kids don't play with this stuff anymore. Is there any real reason to sell it? And I made the same mistakes my mom did. I had a whole bag of these things called Littlest Pet Shops and I was like, yeah, I'll keep a couple of like Leela's favorite toys from this. And then I just tossed the rest. I was like, that. I mean, they got to be worthless, right? Well, like a month later, somehow it came up and I wind up on eBay and each one of these little figures, and I threw away probably two large gallon Ziploc bags full of them. Every one of these freaking characters was going for between like 30 and $60. I just, you know, I should have probably had eBay open and looking at stuff before I made that decision. But you can't. You don't always have time. You're in a crunch when you're in a move. You got to just make decisions based on. Otherwise, you're never gonna get everything moved.
So changing subjects a bit. I'm going to put another thing up. So
Nice.
so so you created this character, and you have a name for the series of work.
Yes. So this is kind of the flagship design for culture pop clothing. Um, this particular piece is called Modern Gandhi, and it's obviously an exploration of, you know, it's the very famous image of Gandhi um, during his fast. I think he's carrying all of his belongings with him, all of his clothes and rags and whatnot. Um, but the idea here was just if if Gandhi was around in modern day, and this would have been modern day of like 2012, I think is probably when I made this design. So modern day of 2012, it's like would he still have the patience and everything else, or would he just be like,
Mhm.
would he just be frustrated and have to express himself in some way? So and that very much became the mascot for culture pop clothing. And unfortunately, culture pop clothing was there's if you go on my Instagram page, we were supposed to launch in summer of 2014, I think. And you might realize that we are now in winter of 2026. So some 12 odd years later, there have been pieces that have gotten out there in the world. There have been shirts that were made, but the company itself never properly launched, and it still haunts me. And still very much, I'm still sketching ideas for it and adding to it. I have hundreds of ideas, and um, I have quite a number of completed designs, and it will happen. I still want it to happen. Um, in the last 12 years, it's crazy how many other similar companies have come about. Um, and it's kind of like, yeah, you look back, you're like, shoot, did I miss the wave on this? But life happens and distractions happen, and you've got to put some things in front of other things. But this is definitely a passion project I would like to invest some more time into and get going.
What's behind the name culture pop?
So to me, it was just taking pop culture and literally flipping it, kind of like turning it on its head. It was a way to kind of look at culture through a skewed view or through another view and see it in a different way. And some of those things were a little deeper or kind of more on the political spectrum, like those two we've seen, the modern Gandhi and the truth red. But then we've got some like this, which is just making certain associations. And this is more of like your true parody as opposed to satire, right? And this is just the alien creature has that thing that comes out of his mouth, and it just made me think of Gene Simmons always sticking out his tongue. And it's like, hey, here's your perfect mashup here. I call this one Alien Kiss.
That
Yeah,
that
because
that
Gene,
and it creates a piece of art that's beautiful on its own.
yeah, yeah, that one's a lot of fun. This one we made a number of shirts of, and I do have to give credit where it's due. The concept in the original sketch was mine, but I actually worked with an artist named Ray Friendon, who had worked with a guy named Coop, who was a huge artist, 90s rock poster art guy back in the day. And so we worked together, we collaborated on this to make this design, and also probably another one you might show in a little bit.
Oh,
Um, yeah, this one here, Jason Voorhees. So this was playing with puns before like the punny stuff was as popular as it became, and I think kind of died away. This was another one with Ray, and on ironically enough, I don't have the one that I had sketched out. I had sketched out a Freddy Krueger one, and this came from the movie The Great Outdoors. There's Bart, the bear that was used in that movie. It's called the bald bear, and in that movie, the whole idea is that um, he broke into the cabin and they shot him with a shotgun, and it took the top of his head, took all of his hair off the top of his head.
Hmm.
And then later in the movie, he breaks in again, and they get it to leave when they shoot it again, and now it takes all the hair off of his butt. And they describe him as like Freddy Krueger. So I had this crazy idea: what if we do like Bart the bear, but as Freddy Krueger? And so the part of his head that's missing is all Freddy Krueger like. And then we do a front and back. So the front of like the shirt or the hoodie would be him kind of coming at you with the Freddy Krueger glove out, and then on the back of the shirt he'd have the bare butt, Freddy Krueger pizza, pepperoni pizza style too. And we made that one. Unfortunately, I don't have it on here. We made that one. It was incredible. And in the process of making it, he's like, "Oh man!" He kept calling it Teddy Krueger because it was like a bear. So he was calling that one Teddy Krueger, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "I thought of one. Can I show it to you?" And he came out with this one, which was Jason Voorhees, because of course Jason, the character, is Voorhees, Jason Voorhees, and this is a boar. And I just love this one. So yeah.
So cool.
It's funny talking about Jason Voorhees. Another huge part of my stuff is horror movies and things. And look, I've got this guy too. He's on my shelf as well. I think his mask comes off even.
Wow.
Nerdy stuff here. Nerdy stuff.
What's the importance to you of combining things in a unique way, that in ways that are not usually thought of?
I think it's a way of just seeing things in a different light, or paying homage to something really, that has meant a lot to you. Um, there's kind of just something, and there's something to say about obviously perspectives, that everything can be seen in another way. But I also think it comes back to kind of that I have these thoughts and these memories that are so entwined. Like, where do I end and pulp culture begin? So it's kind of a way to process that and to get that out there. It's also very much for me, when you look at any one of these designs that you've shown, my hope is that you get a nice little laugh or chuckle out of it, or at least in your head you're like, oh, that's cool. Because I have such a deep, deep love for comedy, stand-up comedy especially. And I myself, I don't think I have what it takes to get up there on stage and tell jokes. But what I can do is I can tell jokes visually, through the visual spectrum. And if I present something here and it makes you laugh or it makes you think, then to me, I'm doing my job. If I show you something that just looks cool and that's all it does, then I'm not doing my job then, because my job isn't just to make stuff that looks cool. It's to make stuff that impacts you in some way. And so that's kind of where that realm sits with culture pop is, if you're familiar with any of the iconography I use, I want you to kind of see it in a way that you're like, oh, this is new, this is fresh, this is funny. This makes me think, why is Gandhi flipping off the camera? Gandhi is a peaceful person. He would have never done that. Why is he doing it? Why does this political symbol that I recognize look like a rat? And then on the fun side of it is, why the hell is this Jason Voorhees hockey mask that looks like a pig? Oh, it's a boar. I get it.
The stuff is brilliant. Make culture pop pop on the scene someday and be like the Simpsons was for you and your brother when you were younger, or like Star Wars was when you were 3. May it pop on the scene someday soon.
Ah, appreciate that. I just got to put a little more into it. But thanks for highlighting some of it and letting me talk about some of it.
So, Chris, as you may know, at the end of these episodes, I ask my guests what imperfect means. Im- no, what imperfect best means to them, and you've answered this question before, of course, but in the context of this conversation, what does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
Well, that's interesting. Like you said, I've answered this several times now, and from working together, we discussed it a lot. I'm trying to think in how it would relate to this. Um, hmm. So, how do I tie it into pulp culture or even culture pop? I think we've probably touched on a little bit of it, but I think somewhere in there, it's going to come back to the ripple effect, right? So, the imperfect best is that all of these things were put out into the world. Some movies that resonate with people were really mid-budget, low-budget things that people just kind of had to give up on and release at a certain point or throw out into the world.
Even the original Star Wars, right?
Right. The original Star Wars was essentially an independent film,
Mm.
and the studio did not believe in it. George Lucas hated the process because he kept feeling like the filmmakers were trying to take it from him. This thing got released into the world. Everyone thought it was going to bomb. It was going to be terrible. Um, and yet, look what happened. It became one of the biggest cultural moments, especially in movies and in film, and moved technology forward and whatnot. So, look at how much that ripple has repeated. It's been passed on from generation to generation.
Mm.
And
Mm.
to me, I guess what I'm trying to get at in there is just we all have these ideas in us. I have these ideas for culture pop. I have actual physical designs for culture pop. And there's still a part of me that's holding on to it. There's still a part of me that's not investing in it. There's a part of me that's not releasing it. So that's not doing my imperfect best, right? My imperfect best would be to do more stuff like this and to get it out into the world, to make more, to put up a website, to put some of this stuff for sale, to put it out in the world, and to let people do with it what they're going to do with it. My job's not to control the perfection of everything happening, right? It's
Yeah,
not
wow.
to
Oh,
it's not to
wow.
affect how this affects people. It's just to put it out. And if it makes me laugh, it's good enough to go out there and then let the ripple do what the ripple's going to do.
And let the ripple. If we ourselves enjoy it, it's good enough to put out there and let the ripple do what the ripple is going to do. Oh, that
Precisely.
gives me goosebumps, man. And thanks so much for being. I mean, thanks so much for all you do for speaking of pop culture to Lasagna. You're kind of the wind beneath my wings and my business. Thanks so much for that, and thanks for being just this amazing creative person, and such a family member to your family, and such a friend, and you're a friend to me and so many people. Thanks for being you, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for all the amazing opportunities and for having me on here to talk about, such a cool, topic here that I never probably would have talked about otherwise. And,
You're welcome, and please, I'm going to end the show, but please hang on, because it takes a second to upload. Okay.
Alrighty.
Uh,
Thank you, brother.
I hope you all enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I sure didn't know where we're going. It was fascinating. Isn't Chris a brilliant creative? And and let's all look for culture pop to emerge on the scene in the coming years, and when it does, you can say, "Hey, I said this first on our really awesome podcast." But most of all, we remember you are the best. You are the one and only of you who can create exactly what you can create in the world. The only one of you who can add to the culture in your own unique way. Thanks so much for being you and tune in the future. Thanks for being here. You are the best.